Shall we sing 2 songs before we start our seminar? The first song we sing is Seek Ye First. Let's sing together.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Please sing louder.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Men shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Hallelujah, hallelujah. It shall be given unto you. Hallelujah, hallelujah,
Okay, shall we stand and sing our opening hymn, Wonder of Hope. Come with me to this place where happiness is made, as despair and confusion is there in our life. But today is the day when clouds fade away. Hope is free for all who daily pray. I found that wonderful peace that filled with hope and grace. Everywhere that I go, He protects and saves. By the cross on the hill, where mercy sat in place, I feel safe with my love, come what may. Come with me, let us pray to the Lord amazing grace, for His strength and those from above me. I will not fear, for the joy that I found will wipe tears away, and this hope is for every day. For to be that will with hope and grace, everywhere that I go, He protects and saves. See the cross on the hill, where mercy set in place. I feel safe with my Lord. I found that wonderful peace that fills hope and grace. Everywhere that I go, He protects and saves. See the cross on the hill, set in place. I feel safe with my Lord, come what may. I feel safe with my Lord, come what may. We ask Elder Peter come and have a pray.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you so much for the little morning that we learned about your love.
慈愛天父神啊，我哋今早多謝你俾我哋咁好嘅信息，你個愛。
Lord, we ask that you continue to guide us and be with Vanessa as she brings the message this afternoon and help us to learn how to heal.
求你繼續嘅帶領Dr. Vanessa 喺今日下午嘅一個聚會。
May each one of us learn the truth of our love.
願我哋每人都能夠喺呢個時間能夠學習到你嘅真理。
Be with us, pray in name.
求你與我哋同在，禱告奉主名求，阿門。
How many of you enjoyed this morning?
你哋有幾多人今早好享受呢組今日個正道？
Oh, we thank you for a great morning, and I'm sure many of you have a lot of questions.
好多謝你哋參加，我哋都知道你哋會有好多嘅問題。
And I'm not sure that we have all time to answer all the questions.
但係我唔知道我哋會唔會有呢個時間能夠解答晒所有嘅問題。
So in the front here, I need the boys, the guys to help us pass out the paper, the cards.
Andy.
If not, we'll pass it out.
又話有Jose, can you help pass it out the card?
So we have cards right in the box right here in the front.
我哋有一個箱子喺度，有啲卡，佢哋可以發出去。如果你哋有問題嘅，你哋可以寫低，我哋可以解答。喺呢個疫情中，又話你哋有咩問題都得。
Yeah, so it's a 3x5 card, so you could just write Chinese, English, Spanish, doesn't matter.
你哋可以寫中文、英文、西班牙文都得。
And give it back to Pastor or Josue. Hopefully toward the end, and we'll bring it up, and we could answer as many questions that we could have.
如果你有問題可以寫低，我哋可以俾阿Josue話牧師。到最後我哋有時間嘅時候，我哋會幫你解答呢啲問題。
No question is a bad question.
冇咩問題係唔好嘅問題。
No question is a dumb question.
亦都冇咩問題係一種愚蠢嘅問題。
The dumb one is that don't ask.
愚蠢即係你如果唔問嘢就最愚蠢啦。
Yeah, so you remember in 5th grade, you always raise your hand. I have a question. I have a question.
記得你喺5年班，你成日都舉手問東問西。
When we go to junior high and high school, we stay quiet, don't say anything.
到初中中學嘅時候咧，你哋咧個個靜晒，唔想問嘢啦。
And when we get into the classes I teach, nobody talks, and they're all doing their little devices.
當你再高啲嘅時候，你就乜嘢都唔講，咁淨係喺度睇住你個手機。
I want you to start thinking about your lives and things that maybe in your past or your parents' past, right?
我想你咧喺度咧思考下你哋嘅生命，即係話你個父母，即係話嘅生命以前。
So I'm going to be transparent. I want to start first.
我咧就要好即係好點講啊？講出我自己嘅心聲。
When I first came to America,
當我15歲嚟到美國
first came. When I first came.
當我嚟到美國嘅時候
I was 5 years old.
我係5歲啫。
And my parents sent me to a kindergarten school, public school.
我父母咧就俾我入公立學校讀書。
Kindergarten.
幼稚園。
And I know no English.
我一個英文字都唔識。
And I was sitting there and had no idea what the teacher was talking about.
我坐喺嗰度咧，根本就唔知道個先生喺度講緊乜嘢嘅。
During recess, I was a little Chinaman that's sitting there, and it looks funny because all the kids around there are white kids.
當休息嘅時候咧，我係唯一個中國人坐喺一班白種人嘅中間。
This is in back east in Maryland.
當嗰時候咧，我喺馬里蘭州嘅喺東部嘅東岸嘅。
I didn't think much of it.
我嗰時候唔感覺到乜嘢。
But one time I was walking home by myself. This is like 5 minutes from the house, right?
但係有一日咧，我就喺我個屋企左右5分鐘，大約5分鐘左右咧就行緊。
Returning home.
當我哋回家嘅時候
，I saw 3 bigger kids.
我哋見到有3個大孩子
approached me.
向住我咁行過嚟。
And they start bullying me.
我開始嚟到欺負我。
And they picked me up.
佢直情成個人抽咗起我
，threw me in the river，
抌咗我落去個河嗰度。
Good thing the river wasn't deep。
好慶幸就係嗰個河咧就唔係好深。
But I didn't know what to do。
但係我就唔知道點做啦。
Luckily, a lady from the neighbor saw everything。
但係喺鄰居個有一個女士咧睇到晒所有嘅事幹。
But the funny thing is, she did not come and help me。
有佢就係佢唔係直接嘅嚟幫我。
She asked my mom. She said, "Your son is thrown in the river." She's closer, right? She didn't come immediately. She just, "Oh, your son is close. Go help your son." So my mom came over. 佢淨係叫我媽媽佢其實係近我嘅，佢就叫我媽媽你去救你嘅仔啦。 And of course, I was 5 years old. I was crying and was very disappointed.
當然啦，我嗰時候5歲，喊啦，又好失望啦，睇到咁嘅情況。
You know, the funny thing was, I was not disappointed. I was wet and cold.
我唔係為我個成身濕晒而嚟到即係憂慮，即係唔開心。
I was really disappointed because in my pocket was a roll of little small firecrackers, all wet. Now I can't play with it.
因為咧，我個袋咧原來裝住咗炮仗，濕晒，梗唔玩得。
But that, and I didn't think much of it until just like last couple years. I don't know why.
但係我咧時時刻刻咧呢個印喺我腦上好深刻嘅，我都成日問。
And so that was a trauma that I hide for years.
呢個係我一個較大嘅創傷喺我咁多年前。
Did it affect my life? I don't know.
我唔知道會唔會影響到我而家。
My outlook of how other people look at me, I don't know. I have no idea.
我唔知道會唔會影響第二啲人，我亦都冇可能咧。
And many of us are, I think most of us are, maybe a few are not American born.
我相信呢度有好多人咧都係唔係真係喺美國長大嘅。
And you have a similar type of stigma about the local having racism against us, right?
我相信你都會有遭遇過有俾歧視喺本地嘅人歧視。
So obviously, everybody has some trauma in life.
我相信每個人都會有一些創傷喺佢哋過去
So the
嘅
question
日子。
is, how do we heal?
但個問題就係我哋點樣嚟到醫治自己呢？
Right. So hopefully you could be more engaging. Start writing, thinking about your life, and maybe we'll find and unlock some of the mysteries, and maybe we could Dr. Vanessa could help us, give us some direction on solutions.
希望咧今日你能夠寫出你嘅心聲，而希望咧喺度咧你講咗出嚟咧，我哋金泰娜博士咧可以幫你解答同埋醫治到你有呢啲咁嘅恐懼症嘅憂慮。
So I want to give her the time now, and we will continue on the healing together.
而家我哋讓呢個時間俾佢我哋一齊嚟到傳語。
There we go. Something that comes to my mind when I'm hearing stories is I would like to continue hearing stories. I'm a therapist. I'm biased.
我聽到故事嘅時候咧，即係我係治療師咧，就會好想繼續聽啲故事，
Love stories.
一啲愛情嘅故事。
Earlier, I talked about this story about a young lady.
今朝早講到一位年青女士。
And what repressed stories could do to future generations.
一啲壓抑咗嘅故事可以點樣影響到未來嘅世代？
She didn't have to have lived the trauma. She didn't have to have been there witnessing it.
佢唔使經過呢啲嘅痛苦或者見到一啲嘢，
To be impacted deeply by it.
都可以受到呢啲深深嘅影響。
We don't know how.
我哋都唔知點解會咁。
But the impact is there, and it comes up in very interesting times.
但影響就有嘅喎，仲係啲好奇怪嘅時候先走出嚟。
We sometimes learn to live with the impact.
有時我哋會學識點樣同嗰個影響係共存。
What's interesting about the research about, the future generations
就係對呢個未來世代嘅研究嘅時候，
is that there is a psychological impact to repressed stories.
對呢啲被壓抑嘅故事咧，係會有一個嘅心理上嘅影響。
The message is we're not okay, but we're not allowed to talk about it anyway.
個信息咧就係唔 OK 嘅，但係我哋又唔可以講喎。
Or we are okay, nothing happened, it wasn't important.
或者話係唔得嘅，但係又唔緊要，唔講就得㗎啦。
It's often led by pride,
有時就因為驕傲嘅緣故啦，
fear,
恐懼啦，
or other emotions.
或者其他嘅情緒。
What is your family's story?
咁你屋企人嘅故事又係點樣呢？
In my life, as well as in the lives of a lot of Latinos,
對於我自己同埋好多拉丁裔嘅人嚟講呢，
talking about the ones I've been around and given treatment to,
可以講到係我周圍嘅人啦，同埋我曾經治療過嘅人啦。
I notice there's a common theme about repressing our stories of what it looked like to adapt here in America.
好多時出現同一個主題呢，就係有啲喺嚟到新嘅國家嘅時候經歷過嘅嘢，嗰啲嘅改變。
When I was very young, I immigrated into the United States with my parents.
我好細個嘅時候，同父母一齊移民到嚟美國。
I think I was about 2 or 3.
可能係2、3歲咗緊。
And I also didn't know English when I was put into school.
咁我又係去返學嘅第一日咧，係唔識英文嘅。
There was something about our home life, though, that protected us.
屋企嘅生活咧，有啲嘢係保護咗我哋。
But I couldn't put my finger on what happened when I went to school and outside of home.
但係我又唔可以指實咧，就係話我去到返學嘅時候，離開屋企又點樣樣？
I know now what I didn't know then.
嗰陣時唔知，我而家就知啦。
That I wasn't given language to be able to understand what racism was.
就係我有呢一個嘅語言能力去了解種族主義係啲咩嚟。
Discrimination, oppression, microaggressions.
呢個嘅被欺凌啦、被歧視啦，或者好微型嘅一個嘅侵犯。
I always felt out of place though.
但係我感覺咧就係好似唔係好配合咁樣，唔係好合襯。
Always straining for my English to be perfect.
成日就係驚嗰個英語能力咧唔完全。
Wearing a certain type of clothes.
或者着某一類嘅衫。
Looking or not looking a certain way.
個樣會可以點唔可以點
etc.
好多古靈精怪嘢。
I decided, okay, I'm going to go study my college experience in Mexico.
咁我就決定咧係去到大學咧要去墨西哥讀。
And I had a big culture shock.
咁我就有一個好大嘅文化衝擊。
I thought, okay, I don't really belong in the United States, but I'll find my home when I come back to Mexico.
咁你唔入得到美國社會，咁去到墨西哥應該好似屋企啦。
But no.
唔係㗎。
I quickly was pointed out as the foreigner.
你好快咧就俾人睇到你係外國人。
Now I was trying really hard to pronounce my Spanish correctly.
咁到而家咧就調翻轉，西班牙語講得要好純正。
And I noticed that I quickly learned that I was in nomad land.
咁我就變咗咧係發現自己係一個遊牧嘅地方。
Neither here nor there.
又唔喺度，又唔係落咗跟喺嗰度。
So I went through my master's and doctorate.
咁我就經過係碩士同埋博士。
Back in the United States.
喺美國讀嘅。
And I had this strong impression.
咁我就有一個好強嘅印象。
There are other people who have experienced similar stories like mine.
就有好多人都經歷過類似我咁樣嘅經驗。
And I dedicated a lot of my studies to understanding the impact on culture in our lives and stories.
咁我就俾咗好多心機咧，去研究呢一個係呢個移民嘅人嘅體驗。
I started by telling my story for the first time when I was into my 30s.
我去到30幾歲咧，先至係第一次將自己嘅故事講晒出嚟。
And then I talked to my parents about my experience.
咁然之後咧，就同我父母講我自己嘅經驗。
My parents didn't understand what I had gone through.
我父母咧就唔明白我經歷過啲乜嘢。
They didn't understand. They told me they couldn't understand if they had tried so hard to protect me.
佢哋唔明白就係話佢哋係好努力咁係保護我。
But they told me their story.
咁然之後佢哋有講佢哋嘅故事俾我聽。
And I was able to find common ground.
咁我就揾到一啲共同之處啦。
There was impact.
係有衝擊嘅。
And then I had my kids.
咁我又有下一代啦。
And I realized that having these two stories in my mind with a lot of awareness.
咁我就發覺兩個故事再有呢個嘅認知嘅時候呢
gave me a unique opportunity.
咁就俾咗一個獨特嘅機會。
I could do something different in parenting my kids.
咁我就可以做啲特別嘅事，就係我照顧下一代嘅時候。
But there was a challenge.
但係呢，有個挑戰喎。
How do I do this and create resilience rather than breed resentment?
咁點可以使到下一代更堅強，而唔係使佢哋係更加埋怨呢？
Or fear or shame?
或者係羞恥，或者係恐懼。
Now the conversations with my young babies, my toddlers.
咁而家同我啲小朋友對話嘅時候，
are very impacted and influenced with what I've lived.
咁就係好受到我自己經歷過乜嘢而影響啦。
I buy books intentionally explaining that differences have to be seen and honored.
咁我就買啲書係教佢哋有啲不同之處呢，係要俾人睇出嚟，係要尊重嘅。
That tolerance embraces difference.
要有一個嘅包容去包容呢啲不同嘅地方。
That the point is not to assimilate.
就唔係話要就咁同化，
It's to engage together.
就係要一齊去深入去做。
Hear our stories, embrace our stories,
咁呢啲就係我哋嘅故事，你要擁抱佢，
and have healing conversations.
咁就可以有一啲醫治治療嘅一啲對話。
So, I refuse to let my story go untold.
咁所以呢，我就唔俾呢個我自己故事呢唔講出嚟。
So my kids can be more aware of the place, the world around them.
咁我嘅仔女呢，就更加去認知到佢哋所處嘅世界係點樣啦。
And respond with more emotional intelligence than I did.
咁佢哋情緒要點樣反應呢，就會更加嘅有智慧啦。
How does it look to start the healing process?
咁所以開始呢個治癒過程係點嘅呢？
If I take myself back to when I was experiencing these things,
所以如果我行翻轉頭睇自己點樣經驗呢啲情況嘅時候，
I can relate to a lot of these things here.
我就覺得自己好多呢啲點都中嘅。
Self-doubt and self-criticism.
自我懷疑啦，自我批判啦。
Learning how to do things and how to forgive others, and unlearning really toxic cultural habits of silence, for instance.
學到一啲點樣去應付嘅事情，同埋點樣唔做得呢個唔好嘅嘢，點樣去學到唔做。
Yes, feeling frustrated.
咁當然都有覺得好麻煩嘅時候，
Making mistakes.
係有做錯嘅時候啦。
Feeling very overwhelmed.
亦都有好大壓力嘅時候啦。
I remember another incident in my life where I got into a car accident.
咁我記得有一次呢係遇到車禍。
This was 20 years ago.
應該都20年前啦。
I still get panic attacks when I turn a certain way on bridges.
咁有時喺橋上邊某一種揸車嘅方法呢，會令到我係有反應嘅。
Is this my fault?
係咪我錯呢？
Did I choose to be so sensitive to certain things?
我係咪選擇去為有啲嘢特別敏感呢？
No.
唔係喎。
My brain became impacted out of my control by the experiences I lived.
我自己控制唔到我個腦呢係會某一種反應，因為我經歷咗啲嘢。
The most important thing in the healing process to have self-compassion.
咁所以呢，係最緊要呢個治癒嘅時候呢，就係有呢個自己嘅熱誠。
Yeah. Another story is I remember when my husband and I were trying to have children that I lost 2 babies.
咁亦都係我同先生想係懷孕嘅時候呢，失去過2個細路。
It wasn't until later that I understood that I too could grieve for the loss of something I hadn't really had.
咁所以亦都學到呢係點樣去係懷念悼念呢一啲我未曾有過嘅嘢。
Giving myself the space and honoring that situation for me, how I perceived it, was valuable.
俾自己空間去明白到自己嘅反應，亦都係好緊要。
And there's others here. You can see the list. If you would like to translate the other side of the list here.
仲有好多嘅要點喺度嘅，包括係掙扎去原諒自己，感覺到有錯，或者係有感到遺失，或者同人失去關係，有時放棄，要重新建造自己，同埋好難可以做到自私咁樣等等。
The wonderful thing is that although this is a very personal process and journey,
咁呢個係好複雜嘅一個過程，
we don't have to go through it alone.
我哋唔係要自己去度過嘅。
In the way that Dr. Young told us his story,
喺楊醫生講嘅故事嘅情況當中，
how do we heal by talking about ours?
咁點樣可以用自己講呢樣嘢出嚟，而自己醫療自己呢？
We can't until we start healing our brain.
咁
Number one.
冇辦法醫療嘅，除非我哋治癒自己嘅腦。
We talked about the importance of self-reflection, but how do we strengthen the skill of self-reflection?
嗱，要自己反映翻啦，咁但係點樣去強化自己嘅呢個嘅能力呢？
This is really hard for cultures like mine, where talking about emotions can be seen as undignified.
我自己文化呢係講自己嘅情緒呢係唔好睇嘅。
We have to unlearn these things, these messages.
我哋要將呢個學到嘅辦法呢係調翻轉。
In order to become healthy individuals, at least emotionally, we have to be willing to explore and recognize the feelings we experience.
我哋要情緒恢復健康呢，一定要係認識到我哋自己嘅感覺。
Starting with understanding that emotions are a gift from God,
要明白呢，情緒呢係上帝所賜嘅禮物。
that they are put in our system to help us.
係佢擺咗入我哋嘅體內呢，係幫我哋嘅。
Its two main functions of emotion are to protect us
第一嘅原因就係要保護我哋，
and to motivate us towards action and change.
就係同埋第二就係要使我哋有一個意願呢係去改變。
So let's imagine you are in a conversation with your family and something someone says causes friction.
咁例如想像自己同屋企人嘅對話，突然間有人講咗啲乜嘢，就產生摩擦力。
If we were to start practicing then self-reflection, I would be a person who would be willing to stop at that moment.
咁如果我要去實行呢一個自我反省嘅話呢，我就會喺嗰度停一停，
And instead of reacting to that comment,
就唔好淨係第一就去反應去做出一個反應。
I would attempt to explore, wait, what am I feeling in this moment?
咁我就會停一停，就係諗下點解我有咁嘅感覺呢？
Maybe it's embarrassment.
可能係尷尬。
What's next?
下一樣點呢？
We're trying to understand and recognize what it causes me physically.
就係要明白到自己身體上嘅感應係點樣嚟。
In the same way that we're learning to drive and I push the gas pedal and I recognize, oh, the car moves.
就好似你學車嘅時候踩嗰個油門咁嘅車喐喎。
I recognize that certain messages, words, and triggers cause me embarrassment.
就好即係我咁樣係認知到原來咁有人講咁嘅話呢，我就會有咁個尷尬感覺。
Guilt, sadness, pain.
或者係痛苦啦，或者係唔開心啦咁。
The mind and the body are very much connected.
所以呢個身體同埋大腦呢係好連結嘅。
In that way, we understand that a physical sensation is linked to an emotion.
咁你就會知道呢，身體上有一種反應呢，就係呢個情緒上導致出嚟嘅。
And we can use this principle to know ourselves better.
我哋學識呢個原則呢，就可以更加認識自己啦。
If we don't,
如果你唔敢做呢，
our bodies will keep asking for help.
我哋身體就繼續出嚟求救。
And asking and asking until we listen forcefully.
繼續去求救，直至到我哋有一日聽佢。
Certain cultures have certain weaker organs.
有啲嘅各種文化都會有各種不同嘅比較弱嘅器官。
For instance, Latinos may be the gastrointestinal system and ones that reacts more strongly to unexplored emotions.
咁原來拉丁裔咧，可能對呢啲嘅情緒上嘅反應咧，就係嗰個腸胃嘅反應。
Understanding this helps us read ourselves better. Oh, I'm feeling discomfort here or tension, or I'm starting to develop symptoms. There must be something going on emotionally.
咁你明白到咧，如果有啲乜嘢嘅反應啊，身體有咩反應嘅時候，原來咧就係因為我情緒上有啲波動。
Ultimately, the more conscious I am of my emotional system and my physical system, the more control I can have.
咁如果你更加去認識呢個情緒同身體個反應咧，你就更加能夠掌控到控制自己啦。
And I'm not talking about control like I'm not going to show my emotion, I'm going to be stoic and silent.
控制唔係話我唔表達個情緒出嚟咪得咯咁。
I'm talking about control, emotional intelligence.
我而家講緊係控制自己情緒嘅智商。
Where I can understand what I'm feeling and thus be more assertive with expressing my needs or my thoughts.
咁明白到嗰個反應來源咧，就出嚟個表達個結果咧，就會更加有用。
We also mentioned that it's hard when we've gone through trauma for some individuals who have gone through abuse, for instance, to tolerate physical sensation.
有時咧，個經歷過個創傷咧，就會更加容忍到自己嗰個嘅身體嘅反應。
It's like we want it, but we can't tolerate it.
就好似話其實自己想，但係又容納唔到發生。
How we heal our brains in this certain scenario is very complicated.
所以呢個要想去醫治翻自己嘅腦個情況咧，係好複雜嘅。
Because an abuse that happens to a child is in essence a violation of their physical safety and physical space.
因為如果受虐待嘅話，就係身體係受過呢一個嘅暴力。
Trusting someone else is almost impossible if I have not healed.
咁如果你冇治癒到呢個情況咧，你冇可能去信第二個人。
Trusting them with my body, that is.
將呢個身體係信佢哋，信下一個。
The first step is not to try to be safer with somebody else.
就係個反應咧，唔應該係話下次同人哋咧就要安全啲，身體隔離遠啲。
It's to connect with yourself.
就係要同自己連接上。
How can I tolerate being in my own body?
我哋自己喺自己身體裏邊點樣去寬容自己
Understanding that it was given to me by our Creator to care for it.
明白到呢個感覺咧係創造主俾你保護自己嘅。
And that I am in control of caring for it.
咁而家咧我係有控制到我自己照顧自己。
And that it doesn't belong to anybody else.
就唔屬於另外一個人嘅。
Once I get to connect with myself,
咁我連接咗自己之後呢
then I can start teaching others to engage with me in a respectful, safe manner.
咁就可以教育其他人去點樣喺一個尊重嘅情況之下互相相處啦。
A lot of this work really does take place in a very self-conscious way or in a therapeutic environment.
係要有啲特別嘅環境啊，係自己感覺到自己嘅時候先至做到嘅。
But some things we can start to do are engaging in skills that help us cope with feelings of anxiety, for instance, or depression.
咁但係最好嘅開始呢，就係開始去進入去呢個情況，就係可以使到自己知道點樣自己照顧自己。
And doing self-care.
係自己去照顧。
I know a lot of people that don't do self-care because they think that it's selfish.
有啲人就話覺得自己顧自己呢，就係一個自私。
What do you mean? I'm going to go spend money to make myself feel better. Why?
去出去使錢等自己感覺開心呢，點解要咁啊？
That's a message as well that we are not worthy to be invested in.
亦都話係自己覺得咁樣投資俾自己係唔值。
And another misconception is that it takes money to care for myself.
另外一個思想就會話哦，要使錢㗎，要照顧自己。
Self-care takes the form of different things.
照顧自己咧係有唔同嘅種類啦。
Whether that be engaging in something that I love, like exercise, like nature, or like painting.
你可能係去運動啊，去行山啊，或者去畫畫啊咁。
Or asking my family to give me some time so I can re-energize alone, maybe by reading or listening to music.
或者叫家人俾啲時間自己可以去舒服一下，可能聽音樂，可能去讀書。
In any case, coping skills and self-care really are my responsibility to ask for and engage in.
所以話自己照顧自己咧，都係一個係好緊要嘅過程。
It's not someone else's responsibility to take care of me as much.
唔係話人哋係照顧自己係更加緊要。
At least through the process of healing from trauma.
起碼喺對於從呢個創傷治療翻嚟嗰個過程係咁。
Another one here is maintaining focus and inner calm when we do feel triggered by things. 同埋就係俾嘢係刺激嘅時候咧，你係要自己裏邊有一個嘅平靜，要集中。And we talked about triggers being things we can see, taste, smell, feel. 有啲激發你嘅嘢，可能係睇到嘅、聽到嘅、聞到嘅，感覺到嘅味道。And we don't know when they're going to come up, right? 咁我哋唔知幾時會出現呢啲嘢。So when we do recognize we're in a situation, for instance, myself, when I'm driving and I'm feeling very triggered by traffic or by the speed of the car. 咁我知道咧，自己揸車嘅時候咧，有啲咩激發到你咧，就係好多時就係路上邊嘅車啊，前邊嘅車幾快幾慢啊咁樣樣。I have to constantly practice being present and engaged with what's going on right now. 我就真係要係好照顧，知道自己所在嘅情況係乜嘢。If I let my thoughts wander ahead of me, they run in frantic stress response. 咁如果俾其他嘢帶咗你去第二度，諗咗第二度嘅話咧，你就好啲嗰個反應咧就會好鬧交。They freak out. 就唔知道自己點做。Oh no! What would have happened to my kids without the mother? 弊啦，冇就啲細路冇咗阿媽點算啊 ？Did I pay for my life insurance this month? 哎呀，有冇交到人壽保險費啊 ？What if I kill someone in an accident? 哇！如果我意外撞到人撞死人點算啊 ？I go to jail and I never see my family again. 哎呀，坐監啊，見唔到屋企人啊！ Can you imagine? I am in itself creating a scenario that my body thinks is happening. 所以即係你變咗你成個諗咁多嘢咧，全部都係你身體叫你咁樣刺激出嚟做嘅。My brain can't tell the difference with it happened and I'm freaking out, or it didn't happen and I'm freaking out. 所以就話你自己諗傻咗，究竟係有發生諗到傻咗，定係冇發生咧？ We have to learn how to maintain calm when we are triggered. 所以我哋受到刺激嘅時候，一定要學識係自己平靜。And have self-compassion when it does come up. 要自己去寬容自己，去當有事真係發生嘅時候。Because your physical response is a learned reaction to trauma. 因為你身體反應咧，其實係從呢個創傷嗰度學翻嚟嘅。That is not in your control. Your reaction is not in your control. 你個反應咧就唔會俾你自己控制到啦。But your behavior after the trigger is definitely. 但係喺嗰個激發個行為之後，你點樣嘅行為咧，就係你自己控制到。So we're taking small steps towards change. 所以我哋就要用好細嘅步驟去改變。Maybe the first time someone yelled at me and that caused me anxiety because of abuse or aggression I lived when I was younger. 有時可能人哋同你大嗌嘅時候，咁你會因為細個發生嘅事咧，係好大反應。All I have to do is take deep breaths, learn to take deep breaths. 咁你就要學咧係叫做深呼吸。Then I might recognize, hey, I'm not in that situation anymore. The person who's talking to me is a loved, a saved person.
咁你跟住再諗清楚，就係發覺，咦，我冇嗰陣時細個嘅情況咁唔安全喎，因為而家係一個愛我嘅人同我咁講啫喎。
And maybe the next step after that means telling the person, hey, when you yell at me, I remember the abuse I had when I was younger, and that causes me anxiety.
咁下一步嘅呢，就係話俾嗰個人聽，喂，你咁樣嗌呢，我會激發到乜嘢細個嘅時候點樣㗎？
I'm trying to heal, so if you maintain your volume lower, I can respond to you better.
我想醫治自己，所以我請你呢係唔好咁樣可以等我可以幫助自己。
Baby steps are important.
所以好細步細步咁嚟呢係好緊要嘅。
But we have to take action, whether that be baby steps or mini baby steps.
所以就係話細步或者再細步都好呢，都係要有行動行出嚟。
If we don't take action, we can become re-traumatized over and over.
因為如果唔行動嘅話呢，冇行動嘅話呢，就會再次嘅受到呢個創傷。
Our brain can heal when there is action forward towards healing.
咁所以你個行動有行出嚟嘅時候呢，你個腦先至可以係醫治。
Essentially, what we do with trauma, especially generational trauma,
所以特別係呢啲跨世代嘅呢啲創傷嘅時候，
or systemic trauma,
或者係系統性嘅創傷、
cultural trauma,
文化上嘅創傷，
is recognize that our healing process stops the cycles of trauma.
所以呢一啲創傷嘅周期嘅輪迴呢，你就要去有個行動去停咗佢。
And maybe my journey towards healing will end up halfway.
或者我呢個嘅治癒嘅程序呢，係去到一半就終結。
But that's already super helpful to those coming behind me that can improve from my last step.
咁但係對於喺後邊未開始嘅人呢，就已經好大嘅幫助啦。
That's very powerful.
係好有力嘅。
When we go through things together, we often engage in storytelling, for instance.
咁一齊治癒嘅時候呢，可能會經過就係講翻個自己故事出嚟啦。
Or other conversations so that I am joined by someone through my journey.
或者其他嘅對話呢，係有人可以陪住你行。
However, our relationships themselves can be triggers.
但係我哋自己同人哋嘅關係呢，都可以係一個激發點。
One of the biggest things to healing together as a family, as a couple,
或者夫婦或者全家人一齊出嚟嘅治癒，
is to establish clear boundaries.
就要去定明呢一啲嘅界線。
I gave an example earlier about asking a person to speak in a lower tone.
咁頭先講到話，你可唔可以講細聲啲？
But the boundary can be anything from telling someone that maybe you can't talk to them every single day,
界線界限可以有好多種嘅，例如話唔好日日同我講嘢，
to asking someone to hug you every single day,
或者每日要同我擁抱，
or to say something nice to you every day,
或者日日咧要同我講好話，
or to tell them to stop pushing you or grabbing you.
或者叫佢唔好推你，唔好擁你。
The boundary will be very specific and personal to the trauma you've suffered.
呢啲嘅界線界限呢，係會好指定係某啲睇你咩情況。
What else here? I'm getting the sense that our clicker doesn't work, Pastor, so you're going to have to help me. We also have engaging in positive and safe experiences with others.
呢個就係同他人呢係做啲正面安全嘅體驗。
If our family has gone through something really rough, like let's just say the pandemic,
好似最簡單話，我哋家人經歷過呢個疫情咁樣，
we can definitely heal together by replacing those uncomfortable and horrible experiences.
咁一啲好恐怖嘅經驗呢，就要換咗做一啲好嘅體驗。
Another element is changing the stories we hold of the world and of other people.
或者呢，就係對自己睇嗰個世界嘅或者其他人嘅故事要改一改。
What happened to us doesn't change.
我哋發生咗咩事喺我哋身上呢，就改唔到噶啦。
but how we see others does.
咁我哋睇其他人點呢？係可以變嘅。
An example would be maybe from my experience with feeling like I didn't belong in different cultures.
咁我自己嘅體驗就係話，覺得自己融唔入各種嘅文化。
Engaging in conversations with individuals who identified with being bicultural.
咁可以去同交多啲朋友都係雙重文化嘅人。
Instead of blaming those who treated me certain ways.
就唔好話去賴嗰啲邊一方面去歸咎你嘅人。
I could understand that behavior came from a lack of knowledge, and I can do something different to teach my world to behave differently.
咁有啲人就因為唔明我嘅處境，所以咁樣對我。咁但係我可以教育我附近周圍嘅人係點樣。
My story empowers me and empowers those around me.
我自己嘅故事呢，就使我自己同埋附近周圍嘅人就更加有能力啦。
And they will also be impacted and view the world differently.
咁佢哋亦都會受到呢個衝擊呢，就佢哋睇世界就有啲唔同啦。
We have to recognize that there's relationships that are toxic.
咁但係亦都要知道呢，有啲嘅人際關係呢，就叫做有毒嘅。
And what does it mean to have a toxic relationship?
咩叫做有毒嘅關係呢？
Someone who doesn't respect our boundaries.
係唔尊重你界線嘅。
Someone who doesn't value us.
對唔覺得你有價值嘅。
Someone who encourages us to feel shame.
鼓勵你覺得自己羞恥嘅。
Someone who doesn't have the same values and beliefs that I have and disrespects me from having mine.
有人嗰個價值觀同你唔同，咁佢就話你嗰啲係唔好嘅。
Someone who violates my spaces.
或者係呢個係侵入你嘅空間
etc.
等等啦。
Prioritizing them doesn't mean throwing people away.
即係呢個叫做排先後次序，唔係話將所有唔安全嘅關係抌晒佢。
It means engaging more with individuals who add health to my life.
咁所以就係話要同更多係會為你帶嚟健康嘅人咧係相處。
While decreasing engagement with toxic individuals slowly but surely.
就減少呢同呢啲有毒關係嘅人咧就相處嘅時間。
Or communicating assertively with them about the things that have to change for our relationship to continue.
或者同佢哋講明係乜嘢改變先至可以係繼續嘅相處。
Right. Another thing as we heal together is asking for help and seeking professional services.
要一齊去治癒，咁就要去尋求一啲嘅幫助或者專業嘅幫助咯。
We think that by going to professional services, we will be seen as less.
我哋有時感覺係揾專業人士呢，就係好似自己渺小咗。
When in fact it takes incredible strength to break chains.
但係好多時呢，係要有好大嘅能力先至可以去掙脫呢啲鎖鏈。
Especially the chains of trauma.
特別係呢啲創傷帶嚟嘅鎖鏈。
And stigma.
係俾人嘅歧視。
And emotional illness in our families.
或者呢啲情緒上嘅病態。
By seeking professional help, we are taking big steps forward to healing ourselves and our communities.
咁所以揾專業人士嘅幫助呢，其實係一個好大嘅一步去醫治自己。
This goes along with the next one, which is telling our story, being vulnerable in safe places.
咁我哋再睇下點樣係喺咩嘅地方脆弱，咩嘅地方安全。
I felt safe enough because you are all very lovely and nice and welcoming to tell my story with you.
咁你係好對我嚟講好安全，就因為你可以同我講你嘅故事。
But don't think that it didn't make me feel nervous.
咁但係你唔好以為我唔聽到唔緊張喎。
I am learning to tell my story.
我亦都學習緊點樣講自己故事。
Whatever trauma that I may bring in.
有咩我無論點樣帶啲乜嘢創傷入嚟。
But I have to be very careful about who and where.
但係我就要好小心，就係邊個同邊度，
so that doesn't cause me additional crisis, pain,
就
trauma.
唔會帶嚟再進一步嘅痛苦。
Witnessing and recognizing victories is the next one.
係見證同埋認識到自己嘅勝利係好緊要。
And this means that I will be on the lookout for things that I do well.
咁你就會睇住自己邊度做得好，
For moments where I don't let the trigger get the best of me.
就再次有刺激，但係你又唔去以前咁嘅反應嘅時候，
And celebrating that.
就要慶祝一下。
It just happened recently when I was driving from San Diego up to when I lived here in California back home.
咁我就由San Diego 揸車翻屋企嘅時候，最近一次，
I went through an awful place with a bridge.
咁就去到有一條橋，好得人驚。
And I knew my panic attack was coming.
咁我知道咧嗰個懼怕恐懼咧就出現㗎啦。
And because I knew it was coming and I wasn't resisting it,
咁我就知道會出現咧，又唔係去對抗佢。
I can talk to myself in a way that I know works.
咁我就可以自己同自己講一個可行嘅方法。
I told myself, stop, wait, you're not in danger.
咁我就要同自己講話，停一停，諗一諗，而家係冇危險嘅。
Breathe, breathe, it's okay.
呼吸咁就得㗎啦。
And it worked.
咁呢次真係好掂喎。
I did not want to have a panic attack going 80 miles per hour on the freeway.
咁我就可以開80米嘅車速咧，就冇係一個恐懼症發作。
When I got home, I told my husband about it.
咁我翻到屋企同老公講，
And he knows my healing journey.
咁佢就知道我呢個治愈嘅過程啦。
And he was so happy for me. He was so proud.
咁佢又好開心。
And that made it so that in my mind, I cemented a moment of victory over my chains.
咁所以咧，我就好記得咧呢個自己克服到啲嘢啦。
I could no longer say that I always had panic attacks.
咁就唔會話以後都係一到橋位就有恐懼症發作。
I recognized that I was changing.
咁我就感覺認知自己改變緊，
That I had better control.
咁我就控制得好啲啦，
And that we were doing good.
咁可以做得好啦。
There's a lot of hope from that moment.
咁嗰個時候就有好大嘅希望啦。
We recognize the victories.
咁我哋認知到呢個嘅勝利，
We also hold somebody else's story.
咁我哋亦都握住其他人嘅故事。
And what I mean by holding somebody's story is that when I have the honor of hearing somebody else's trauma,
咁即係話咩叫握住人哋嘅故事呢？即係我聽到人哋嘅創傷嘅時候，
I can listen without judgment.
我可以聽而唔去判斷，
I don't give advice.
我唔使去有咩勸告，
I don't criticize.
唔使批評，
I listen.
我就係聽，
I validate.
我就係使佢有效，
And I ask.
再去問，
And I explore.
再去探索，
Holding someone's story safely for them.
就係握住別人嘅故事，使到佢哋安全。
And that leads us to safe conversations.
咁跟住落去呢，就係一個安全嘅對話。
Because, oh my goodness, I might think I'm having a safe conversation with someone and come to find out that I was not.
咁你以為我自己嘅安全對話呢，原來唔係嘅。
Now there's gossip everywhere.
咁呢，就周圍呢都喺度八卦緊啦。
Or my whole family knows something that I did not want out there yet.
或者有人知道我唔想佢哋知道嘅嘢啦。
Or I'm in a conversation and somehow I feel more angry afterwards.
或者你有呢個對話之後呢，之後覺得好嬲嘅。
Something that was supposed to be healing became damaging.
咁原本應該係有治愈功效嘅呢，而家變咗有造成一個破壞。
Yes, we have to learn how to have safe conversations.
所以我哋真係要學咧點樣做有呢啲安全嘅對話。
And the first step towards that is to decrease our defensiveness.
第一步咧就係要減少嘅自我呢個抗辯。
I can imagine if my daughter one day came to me and said, Mom, something you did was very hurtful to me.
咁我女有一日同我講話你有次做嘅嘢咧係對我好大傷害。
I would have to work on my defensiveness.
咁我就要去睇下點樣唔會自我對抗啦。
And instead of saying, I tried my best, it was the most I can do, I didn't know any better. 咁你就會係咪會話我做到最好㗎啦，我就係想你好啊咁樣嗰啲呢？ I would have to respond with, I can understand how that was hurtful. 咁你就要講嘅就係我明白到點解會傷害。Being defensive means that everything people are saying, you think, you perceive them as attacks to you. 自我保護嗰個心態就係話人哋同你講嘢，你當咗係襲擊。And you respond by attacking back. 咁你反應就襲擊返佢對面。Or blaming. 或者賴咗人哋。There's also other mechanisms of defense that we have. 或者有其他嘅自我保護嘅形式。And that's projection. 呢個係估計出去啦。This means that what I feel, I think other people are feeling. 即係我感覺到乜嘢咧？我感覺到嘅嘢咧，我就當咗你都係。You need some water? I'm okay. You're good. Let me get my thought back. So moments where I might feel insecure about myself. 或者自己覺得唔安全嘅時候。I think other people don't like me. 或者就覺得人哋唔中意你啦。Or I think that everybody's better than me. 或者人哋好過我。I'm perceiving the world through my eyes of self-criticism. 咁我自己批評咧，就當咗呢個我嘅世界觀。Or perhaps I have maybe a lot of doubt as to where I stand. 或者自己懷疑自己企喺邊度。And my child decides to do something that is out of the norm. 或者我細路做啲覺得唔正常嘅嘢。And I find that very embarrassing. 就覺得好尷尬。I am projecting my feelings of being unworthy on my child. 咁我自己覺得自己冇價值嘅感覺咧，就擺咗去人哋嗰度啦。And think that that's the way everybody sees us or him or her. 就覺得咧，全世界都係咁樣睇呢件事或者呢個人。The next one is displacement. Displacement. And what this means is when I have the feelings or the behavior of somebody else. 或者即係呢個人哋嘅行為嘅感覺。And I can't react to that person because that person maybe is an authority figure. 或者嗰個人咧係因為佢係權威嘅人士，所以咧我唔可以有反應。So I go and I behave badly and I vent with somebody else. 咁於是咧我就去揾第二個人出氣。This is the typical experience of the boss treating the parent bad. 咁好多時最簡單啦，boss 同父母對待父母唔好。The parent treating the child bad. 父母對待子女又唔好。And the child treating the pet bad. 呢個子女咧又對個寵物唔好咯喎。That's displacement. 咁呢個咧就叫做移位。When I'm having conversations with someone and someone's telling me the trauma that they've gone through, I might feel so anxious that I go and I load it onto somebody else in a very unhealthy way. 人哋同我講佢嘅唔好經驗咧，我就將呢個氣咧就擠落去第二個度。That doesn't foster healthy relationships. 咁但係呢個對於健康嘅關係咧係唔好嘅事嚟嘅。The next one is the not knowing stance. 另一個咧就係唔明白呢個立場。And what this means is that being in a place where I'm hearing somebody's story and I have to recognize that I don't know exactly how they feel. 呢個情況就係去到我唔明白到你嘅感覺係點樣喺邊度。Dr. Young and I had similar stories. 楊醫生同我都係有一個類似嘅故事。But I don't know exactly how he feels. 但係我唔知道佢嗰陣時感覺係點。So I listened to his story, just putting myself empathically in his shoes. 咁我就好似擺我自己喺佢身上着咗佢鞋咁樣。 without bringing up my story to take attention away from his.
咁就唔使擺我個故事落去，就從呢個關心喺佢身上。
I respect the other person by not knowing what they're going to say and what they lived.
咁所以如果佢哋我唔假定佢哋嘅故事嘅話呢，我就係尊重佢哋啦。
But I send the message, I care, I want to know, keep telling me.
但係你又可以講呢，係我關心你，你可以繼續同我講。
I'm not assuming.
所以呢個情況就係話唔好假設。
I'm asking questions.
要問啲問題。
I am managing my feelings of helplessness.
要照顧自己覺得無助嘅感覺。
Because when someone tells me I lost my husband, I am so devastated.
如果有人話俾我聽，我冇咗丈夫，好大嘅悲哀。
I might feel so anxious with that story that I start reacting to it.
咁我就對呢個故事就好憂慮，就開始有行動啦。
By telling them, don't worry, we're going to see them again in heaven.
就會話唔緊要，我哋天國再見。
Or they led a good life, they're at peace now.
佢哋過咗好好嘅一生，佢哋而家好平安啦。
I'm feeling helpless.
咁我就覺得無助啦。
So I'm trying to help them.
咁就嘗試幫佢啦。
But those things are not helpful.
咁但係你係幫唔到佢嘅。
The person is in pain at that moment because of the loss.
嗰一刻佢失去親人就係有一個痛苦。
They're grieving.
佢哋係喺度哀悼緊。
And nothing I can say will stop the grieving process.
咁佢哋哀悼嘅過程，你講乜嘢佢哋都唔會停到呢樣嘢嘅。
Therefore, I have to manage my own feelings.
咁我就要照顧自己嘅一個感覺啦。
When I'm entering into the space of someone else's trauma.
當我去進入咗人哋嘅憂傷嘅時候，
We're not going to fix it.
係改唔到嘅。
How do you fix loss?
咁失去親人冇得改得返㗎。
Pain.
係呢啲痛苦，
We feel it.
我哋感覺到，
We have to process it.
我哋就要去處理佢。
Or else resilience won't come.
咁唔係咧，堅強就冇嚟唔到㗎啦。
We don't take attention away from them. We mentioned that.
唔好使到佢哋即係對於佢哋嘅關心離開咗佢哋。
And we collaborate. What's something that could work for that person?
我哋要合作，睇下有乜嘢係可以幫到佢。
Collaborate implies that I am an active participant in somebody else's journey through healing.
合作就係話我點樣可以參與別人嘅治癒嘅過程。
But it dignifies their story.
咁就使到佢哋嘅故事係更受嘅尊重。
By asking them, what do you need from me?
就問佢，我可以點樣幫到你？
What can I do for you at this moment?
而家我可以為你做乜嘢？
How can I be helpful?
我可以點樣幫到你呢？
Being constructive.
要有建設性。
It means don't criticize.
就唔好批評。
Because we criticize from a position of power, like, I know what you're supposed to do, let me tell you.
即係批評呢，就係我喺一個權力嘅地位嗰度呢，就話嗱，我教你咁啦。
We're really guarding our words so that they're words that heal and repair.
我哋小心用詞係幫人去治癒。
Language is so powerful.
呢個語言文字係好有力嘅。
Impactful.
係好有衝擊力。
And instead of helping, we might be damaging with our words.
有時幫唔到呢，講錯字可以傷害到人。
The Bible talks about this, right?
聖經都有講呢樣嘢，係咪？
There's verses in the Bible and Proverbs about guarding our words.
喺箴言嘅時都有講係小心係把口。
About how hurtful they can be to the spirit.
可以係點樣係傷害人。
Witnessing.
做見證。
What it means to be a witness to somebody else's journey.
做人哋旅程嘅見證係點解呢？
Walking with them.
係同佢哋一齊行。
Instead of leading them.
唔係話抌低人。
Leading them assumes that I know what's best for them.
如果離開人呢，就好似話我知道對你點樣最好。
In essence, it's more of the medical approach.
即係一個醫療上嘅一種方法。
Like, Tell me what's wrong.
好，你話有咩唔對路？
Okay, I understand. Here's your
好，
prescription.
明白。咁你食呢個藥啦。
See, I am telling someone where to go as if I'm walking ahead.
咁我就行前一步，就話俾佢哋聽點行啦。
I am walking with someone
咁如果我係同人哋一齊行，
when we are finding resources together
就一齊去揾乜嘢資源，
without assuming that they are going to be the ones that are helpful,
咁就係話佢哋一定係會最有幫助啦。
but willing to explore that together.
就係同佢哋一齊去探索下。
We go through transformation and healing
我哋係一路嘅經歷呢個轉變，
through dialogue.
就係用呢個對話。
Silence is not helpful.
有時安靜唔係最有幫助嘅嘢。
But we hear this phrase that time heals all wounds.
咁就有時就話時間可以醫治一切傷口。
I would add
我就要加多句，
that time through dialogue
呢個對話嘅時間
it heals all wounds.
就會醫治一切傷口。
There's that important element because we think that the more we don't talk about it and the more time goes by, our body just naturally heals, like physically with a wound.
好似我哋好多時話以為俾時間啦，乜都唔使做，個傷口就會醫治咁，好似我哋平時身體上嘅傷口咁。
Yeah, emotionally it doesn't work that way.
情緒上咧唔得嘅。
We have to take in the opportunity for profound personal and relational growth.
我哋一定要係呢個人際一個關係嘅成長。
We recognize that there is an opportunity in the moment of pain.
咁我哋要睇到有一個係痛苦嘅一個機會，
And we wonder how can we grow together.
我哋就要諗下點樣一齊嘅成長。
A year from now, what do I need to be doing different?
一年之後我哋會做嘅有咩唔同？
And with people, as I'm listening to them, as I'm holding space,
咁我就係握住呢個空間。
it also means that I am not the protagonist.
咁我亦都唔係一個去做一個反方向嘅人。
I don't get to tell that story.
呢最後個故事唔係我講。
A long time ago, when I started practicing therapy,
我喺呢個治療師工作開始嘅時候，
I thought that telling maybe stories of clients
我就會以為係講啲病人嘅故事，
without mentioning their name,
唔提名，
without talking about identifying information,
唔講任何可以睇得出個身份嘅資料，
was helpful to encourage people to find common ground and go to therapy as well.
就可以幫助人呢去揾呢個共通之處呢，就去治療。
I was wrong.
其實我錯嘅，
This breeds distrust.
咁呢個就變咗人哋唔信你，
Those are not my stories to tell.
都唔係我嘅故事。
I'm a keeper and holder of stories,
我應該就係揸住握住呢啲嘅故事，
and I'm a passive participant in that journey.
我係就變咗一個呢係一個係一個被動嘅參與者嘅角色。
I'm active when we're together and we talk about things.
我哋一齊傾偈嘅時候呢，就會係一個共同嘅參與主動嘅參與者。
But I participate passively because I know it's not about me.
咁但係你嘅參與呢係一個被動嘅角色，因為主角唔係我。
And thus, I can celebrate with that person,
咁你就可以同嗰一個人慶祝，
but I can also hold them accountable for the change that they were determined to make.
咁佢哋要決定做嘅乜嘢呢，我就可以係同佢有一個關係啦。
Maybe someone who's recovering from an abusive relationship
或者有人係受虐待之後脫離咗個關係，
has decided to leave that relationship.
咁決定離開咗嗰個情況。
I can become a participant in that person's journey by holding them accountable.
咁我就要使到佢哋係負責 任地咧係離開嗰個情況，
by giving them support.
就可以俾支持佢哋。
But more than anything,
但係最緊要嘅都係
to remain available.
就係隨時可以揾到你。
We have talked about healing,
我哋講咗呢個治癒，
but it sounds a lot easier than it is.
就講就好似好容易，
Because our stories are complicated and our trauma is complex.
因為我哋嘅故事就好複雜，我哋嘅創傷亦都好複雜嘅。
But one thing I know for sure
但係一樣嘢我好知道，
is that healing together is the better approach.
係一齊嘅治癒呢係好過自己。
And there's hope we talked about in the morning, hope through healing with God's love.
今朝亦都講到喺上帝嘅愛裏邊一個嘅治癒。
But I want to give you hope as well as a community, as a church, as a family,
我亦都想俾大家作為教會、個人、家庭嘅一個希望。
that no matter what you've gone through with each other relationally,
無論你個同人哋嘅關係點樣經過咗啲乜嘢，
you can heal from it.
你都可以從中嘅治癒，
You can be a healthy family.
可以一個健康嘅家庭，
You can have growth and change.
你可以一齊嘅成長改變。
But now that we have this information,
咁但係我哋而家攞住呢啲嘅信息啦，
we're responsible for it.
我哋就有呢個責任咯喎。
So you cannot leave here the same as when you came in.
所以你今日離開呢度，一定就同今朝未嚟之前唔同咗。
That's a huge responsibility.
呢個係一個好重大嘅責任。
I hope that through this conversation we have, you could have pinpointed at least your baby step.
所以希望可以呢度每一位都可以確認到我哋要行一啲好細步。
Make it a goal, write it down, and get somebody to have that journey with you.
寫低落嚟，你想行呢啲點樣細步，可以再揾人睇住，幫你一齊行。
Thank you.
多謝。
If you have any questions, please pass it to maybe the middle, and then Josue, could you pick up the questions? Could you pick up the cards, Josue?
我哋而家係睇下有咩問題嘅話，我哋傳道人會幫助收翻張卡，
Pass it to
可
the
以寫低
middle.
擺傳去
傳喺中間嚇。Say that again? Oh, okay. Give a few seconds to write your
可以
questions.
俾啲時間大家寫低。
Well, while you're writing, I have a few.
我自己就有啲問題㗎
So
啦
I'll。get you guys going. No, what you've been talking about is certainly, in the feedback here, is certainly out of the norm and out of our culture. I think Asians and Latinos are very similar, that we hide a lot of these traumas. And we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to bring the ugliness of life into other people. So how do you suggest us as a church family to start helping?
我哋亞裔、拉丁裔都係有啲收埋唔講，咁我哋作為一個教會，要點樣去幫助呢？
I think that starting in little pieces
我哋要由好細步開始，
is very helpful.
係好有幫助。
So something like, hey, there's something that happened to me. Is it okay to talk to you about it?
即係有啲嘢發生喺我身上，可唔可以我哋一齊傾？
Can be a good starting point.
可以就係一個好好嘅開始點啦。
For other people, that might be too shaming, and they might want to go through maybe letter writing.
其他人可能覺得咁樣都比較羞恥嘅話呢，可以用寫信嘅方式，
Letters you write that nobody reads, you burn maybe.
可能寫出嚟自己冇人會睇，會燒咗佢。
Or going to therapy to talk to someone who has our values, who has our mentality, but who's still external enough.
或者去揾呢個專家係同我哋背景相似，但係亦都係局外人。
And the last thing I would say is identifying someone who has a closer relationship to you.
亦都要咧係揾一個人係同你關係夠緊密嘅。
And you can start talking to them about it. It's important that you choose someone that you know would be more willing to open up and listen.
就去同佢哋講，即係咧揾一個係可以開到可以開放到俾你同佢傾嘅。
But yes, we do have to break the cultural norms sometimes a little bit. We have to stretch them.
有時都要係打破到呢一啲嘅文化上嘅規則。
Because the way things are now, our stories are festering within our silence.
咁有時啲問題咧，就因為我哋係唔講嘢而繼續落去。
So one of the people here question here is how can we help an elderly person feel down and comfortable? Can't read the last word, but I think what this saying is that how do we help elderly people express their situation? Because many people my age or older, I consider myself old, you know. The older folks, they keep it inside, as we said, right? And how do you help the ones that have actually gone through more trauma and to bring it up and express, and maybe we could learn from that too as well.
點樣可以幫助長輩講啲出嚟，或者講佢哋你冇體驗過嘅創傷出嚟？
Two things that I've noticed are very helpful.
有兩樣嘢好大幫助嘅。
Is that we can talk to our elderly through stories, encouraging them to tell stories.
或者叫做鼓勵佢哋講佢哋嘅故事。
And not pressure them in any way to tell them, the trauma story.
就唔係一定要去俾壓力佢講啲創傷故事。
But when that individual gets the message that we're interested in their life because it forms part of our family narrative.
但係就即係佢講得出，你明白就有一個家庭嘅嘅感覺。
They're more willing to be open about it, even if it's factual or historical.
亦都可以係一個事實歷史都可以。
The second thing I've also seen is that a therapist or a family member might not be the right person.
第二種我見到係有時一個家人呢係未必一個最好嘅人。
But rather maybe a pastor or a spiritual individual.
可能係牧師啊、傳道人啊呢啲其他角色。
Finding a person actually and talking to them in confidence is probably very important because that doesn't.
即係揾到一個可信賴嘅人好緊要。
Okay, this next one I'm going to summarize. It's quite long, but I think I know what this person is talking about. The question about it is overcoming the feeling of not being enough.
Right.
克服自己覺得唔足夠嘅感覺。
Asian families are very expecting of their children.
亞洲人對子女嘅期望好大。
A minus is not good enough. It has to be an A.
A 減都唔夠，一定要 A。
And that pressure on a person continues on through life, especially if you're the oldest one of the kids.
呢個壓力咧一路繼續落去。
And that could be overwhelming because now you go to work, and that self-doubt of not being enough continues on.
去到做嘢嘅時候咧，都係自我懷疑自己嘅能
How
力。
does one deal with that?
咁點樣處理呢？
I think the process does start as we have had today our conversation.
好似今日由呢一個嘅對話開始。
As the self-awareness is the first piece.
最先就係要自己認知啦。
Oh, I've gone through life feeling like I'm not good enough.
我就係一世人都感覺自己唔夠好。
And then recognizing the factors that play into that.
咁然之後睇下有咩因素係可以係已經入咗嚟嘅。
My culture, my family, my sibling position.
我文化、我家庭、我嘅兄弟姊妹。
My profession, my responsibilities, my gender.
我嘅職業、我嘅性別、我嘅工作。
And it's not to blame.
就唔係話要賴落呢啲嘢度。
It's to understand.
係要去明白。
So when I understand and I'm self-aware of this impacting me emotionally.
咁明白到原來呢啲係影響到我情緒喎。
that I can change a little bit the way I'm perceiving myself.
咁我對自己個睇法呢，就要作出一啲改變啦。
In essence, I'm more willing to be self-compassionate.
咁要為自己係更加好對待自己。
And then start exploring, wait, so where are moments in my life that I have felt good enough?
咁有啲乜嘢嘅地方我係感覺自己夠足夠好呢？
Maybe it's in secret when I'm playing music.
或者係自己彈緊琴嘅時候，
Maybe it's when I'm out, like ministering to others.
或者係自己去照顧別人嘅時候，
A hobby, a pastime.
或者自己一啲嘅嗜好，
And I can start there.
就可以喺嗰度開始。
If there's something I do well and I feel worthy doing,
有啲做得好，覺得自己有價值嘅，
do that more.
就做多啲嗰啲。
Fight the messages every day that come to your head. It's going to be a daily, habitual thing.
就要養成日日都有個習慣，就係當有啲嘢話你做得唔好嘅時候，你要點樣反應遠離佢。
But I can't stop fighting because the moment I stop fighting those messages and allow them to come in, they also impact the generations that follow, and we can't stop the cycle.
就唔可以不對抗嘅手法呢，就係等嗰啲嘢話你唔好，咁你就影響到再下一代啦。
Engage in other environments with other cultures.
係要同其他嘅人同埋其他嘅文化去建立關係。
Our spiritual life you can say a lot about engaging in messages of love and mercy and grace and God being a safe person.
點樣去多啲係話呢個上帝愛你啊咁樣呢啲嘅心態。
Yeah.
So I'm just adding on another question here. As being a parent and a grandparent now, I've learned and still not haven't got the whole thing is respecting my kids and my grandchild's boundaries.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
咁我作為呢個父母、祖父母所要學到嘅呢，就係點樣尊重我子女或者孫輩嘅界線。
Because we want our ideals and values on our kids and our children, our grandkids, right?
有時我哋嘅價值觀呢，都要強加喺下一代、下兩代嘅身上。
Something to say about that. When we're breaking cycles, patterns,
我哋一啲嘅繼續嘅循環，
we have to be really careful when we sift through.
我哋要喺過濾嘅時候要好小心，
We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
唔好呢就係倒呢個沖涼水嘅時候倒埋個嬰孩。
Our cultural values, spiritual values are important.
我哋文化嘅價值同埋信仰嘅價值都好緊要。
And having an open mind and being sensitive to differences and boundaries.
就係要尊重各類嘅差異同埋界限。
It doesn't mean I'm violating my beliefs.
就唔係話係犯咗自己嘅信仰。
So how do we find that balance, right? Honoring somebody else's autonomy and decisions and praising them for that.
咁你就要揾個位係可以係尊重別人嘅價值觀，
But also feel like I'm true to who I am culturally.
但係又對自己係無悔。
Because I feel like, many of us are like that. And I think our kids yearn our acceptance.
Yes.
我哋子女係尋求我哋嘅接受，
And our recognition and acknowledgement of their success.
Always.
係要認知佢哋嘅成功。
Biologically.
Yeah, and so it's hard when one goes through a culture when that recognition was never recognized,
Yeah.
and now you're going through and living second generation, and you copy what your parents did for you, and now, wow, it's totally different. My kids now want my recognition, but no big deal. This is no big deal. Why should we even recognize you? Because I put you through school. You don't deserve that recognition because this is the way it is, right?
Right.
So how do parents help ourselves get through this big hurdle?
It's hard.
係好難要認知到子女嘅成功，咁先至唔係又再影響下一代。
Let me put it an example maybe that we can visualize.
我哋可以俾一個例子睇得更清楚啦。
I am close to a lot of people in my family have become physicians,
我有好多親人咧都係成為咗醫生、
dentists.
牙醫。
And more in the physician world,
喺個醫生嘅世界裏邊，
I've heard experiences of my husband, my sister, like going through moments of a lot of systemic bullying.
佢哋我丈夫同姊妹佢哋都經過好多嘅欺凌。
They go through like rotations and internships and residencies
喺呢個見習嘅呢個過程當中，
where people are really harsh to them because they're in a lower place.
咁佢哋做最低層嘅醫生嘅時候咧，好多人都對佢哋會好差。
And then I've asked them, so what are you doing different to your subordinates?
咁我就問佢：而家你對待下一輩嘅又點呢？
And they recognize that maybe not them, my sister and my husband are very different individuals maybe, but I've heard stories of their peers being really hard on the people that are under them.
咁我姊妹同丈夫就都好唔同嘅情況，但係我聽到佢嘅故事就係見到啲人佢哋嘅同輩咧係會對下一輩咧又係好差。
This makes no sense to me.
呢個對我嚟講咧係冇道理嘅。
Wait, so you suffered this, on you, and you were so like hurt and bogged down by that.
咁即係你受到傷害啦，好受大影響啦。
And you're doing the same thing?
咁你對下一輩又係咁做。
Like how's that helpful
咁你
to
幫
the
到
profession?
點幫自己咧喺個職業上？
And I've asked them this question, and they answered by saying that's just the way system works.
咁佢同我講嘅答案就係話：我呢個系統就係咁樣噶啦。
So we have a responsibility.
咁所以我哋有個責任，
We need to educate ourselves.
我哋要自己教育自己。
What is emotional intelligence?
乜嘢嘅叫情緒智商？
What is positive parenting?
乜嘢係正面嘅育兒？
I've recognized the things that I needed that I didn't receive.
有啲嘢係我應該我需要，但係我冇接受到。
And I find ways and I learn skills to do something different because my kids are so valuable to me.
咁我就學到啲乜嘢呢？係做啲不同嘅方法去幫助我下一代。
My pain is not more valuable than my relationships.
我嘅痛苦唔會個價值唔會超越過我嘅家庭關係。
And I can't do something different until I've healed from the trauma. So, Dr. Young, you've been talking about how can we do something different, and we have to stop and say, wait, we need to heal. Like, we need to focus on us, on ourselves, and our healing process before I could be a parent who does things different.
要自己治癒到先至可以有一個出路咧，係做咗唔同嘅事情。
So this question here is that as a parent, how do you deal with sibling rivalry or jealousy?
作為父母啊，呢個子女嘅鬥爭點樣處理？
If we're really honest about it, sibling rivalry is bred by parent preferences.
呢個其實子女有爭執咧，都係喺父母個偏愛嗰度走出嚟嘅。
I know what parent prefers me.
我知道邊個家長係對我最好。
And I know where my sisters are in preferences with my parents.
咁我亦都知道父母最愛我邊個嘅姊妹。
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter how much they try to hide it by saying we love you all the same.
佢話佢哋愛個個都愛咧，就講咗，但係有啲嘢就遮掩唔到嘅。
They don't treat us the same, so obviously they love us differently.
佢對你係有啲唔同咧，你係知道佢哋嘅愛心係唔同嘅。
And that's okay.
咁但係呢樣係冇事嘅。
It has to be. It's healthy to recognize you love your kids differently.
一定會發生嘅。
But when you say I love you the same, the kids start competing for that same love.
咁如果你話我愛你個個一樣，咁個個呢啲子女就爭取呢個一樣平等啦。
Instead of being unique and being so comfortable being unique, they compete for the one love and expectation that's going to get them into your good graces.
咁就係其實各樣根本係有一個地位嘅時候呢，佢哋就爭取一個佢哋覺得要唯一嘅地位。
I am the only daughter that has not pierced her ears.
咁我就係唯一一個女呢，係冇係穿耳嘅。
And I'm being really honest, I have to say that comes from I know my mom hates pierced ears.
咁我就係其實知道我媽媽唔中意我哋穿耳，
And I am that good daughter.
咁我呢就係最好嘅女啦。
The competition is there.
嗰個競爭喺度㗎，
And my mom might not even be thinking about it.
我媽甚至係冇諗過呢啲嘢。
I started telling my kids, I love you all differently.
咁我就同我自己仔女講話，我愛你哋嘅心有啲唔同。
And that makes more sense to them. I see that even if they're small, they're not competing with each other. They are doing very different things that I know I love about them each.
咁佢哋就唔會去競爭啦，佢哋會做啲唔同嘅嘢，就係我中意佢哋唔同嘅嘢。
Final question. You talked about being present.
就係你個人要在場。
We talked about in my office, and we find ourselves, I call it time travel.
我哋診所呢就叫做時間旅行。
So your mind travels to just 2 minutes ago, 2 days ago, or future, what could happen, right? Those time traveling in our minds get distracted, or distractions in being present.
你翻去旅行幾分鐘前或者幾多年後可能會發生咩事？
So I know you talk about the breathing part. Are there other ways in which we could learn to be present in terms of with the person that wants to share with us, and we want to be present 100% of the time instead of, oh yeah, I'll share with you my other experience, right? So we want to be present. So how do we become a little bit therapist, but not quite?
咁我哋可唔可以點樣學習去在場聆聽人嘅故事，而唔係就咁將個故事講俾人聽，即係好似有少少做一個治療師嘅工作呢？
There's another topic that I have that is called the 5 mental health hygiene habits.
我有一個其實有一個講題叫做5個精神健康嘅習慣。
And one of them is exactly what you said, focus on the here and now.
咁其中一個呢，就係話要集中喺現在呢個環境嗰度。
Because when we do, we feel more in control.
所以因為咁呢，我哋可以更加係感覺到自己控制。
And we're better able to make decisions about what happens next.
咁亦都可以決定到跟住要發生咩事。
This is something that I've practiced a lot, especially now at this stage of my parenting career.
咁而家我去到照顧子女呢一個階段呢，我成日都會做呢啲。
And I decrease distractions, which is number 1.
我就第一就要減少呢個其他嘅事情。
And I'm not going to give you examples. Everybody gets distracted by different things. So whatever that is for you, decrease your distractions.
最緊要呢就係減少呢個分心。
Number 2, increase your awareness.
第二就係要增加個認知。
What is bothering me right now?
而家有咩煩擾我呢？
Is it hot? Is it cold? Am I hungry? Am I tired?
係咪熱？係咪凍？係咪肚餓定係咩呢？
Because I can't be present with another person if I have basic needs that are unresolved.
咁好，如果我自己有好多嘢係嘅需要解決唔到呢，我好難同人哋一齊嘅。
I learned this with my husband.
我同丈夫身上就學到呢樣嘢啦。
He comes and talks to me in the evening, and I'm so tired.
咁我好攰嘅時候喺黃昏呢，佢就同我翻嚟同我講嘢。
And he's talking and he's saying what is important to him, and all I'm thinking about is, did we do this? Did we do that? Did he answer the mail? Did we check our...
佢同我講話今日發生咩事咁，但係佢對佢嚟講緊要嘅事，我嗱諗緊話呢樣做咗未啊？嗰樣做咗未啊？
I'm so distracted.
我有好多分心嘅事。
And then I learned to I could just tell him, babe, tell me tomorrow at 9. I'll be done with my exercise at that time, and I could totally, match your energy better. I'm so tired.
咁我就會同丈夫講話，不如你聽朝9點我運動完翻嚟嘅時候呢，我一定會聽你講。
And it works. We have such an amazing conversation the next day.
咁真係第二日呢，係好有建設性嘅對話喎。
So decrease distractions, increase awareness.
就要減少分心，增加呢個認知。
And number 3, focus on what someone is telling you.
亦都要集中係人哋講緊乜嘢俾你聽。
A very good practice to do this is visualize what they're telling you.
好多時就係使到係喺眼裏邊要好似望到一個
They're talking to you about something and you're seeing it like a movie.
佢講出嚟，你好似當係睇戲咁樣。
And then make yourself a challenge to ask them a question that has something to do with what they're telling you.
就想辦法令自己問到一個問題，就係佢哋講俾你聽嗰啲嘢。
Before you say anything or respond to them, ask them a question first.
唔好咁快講自己感覺住要問咗問題先。
The rule of thumb is 3 questions before a statement.
所以最簡單嘅規則呢，就係起碼問3個問題先至好有答案。
That makes it so your brain is activated in the response to what you're inputting.
咁即係等到你確定呢，自己腦裏邊係轉緊嘅。
Your synapses are firing, your frontal lobe is activated.
係個腦嘅各個部分都已經係開始點着。
You're reading body language, you're fully like connected.
留意佢晒身體語言啦，咁你就同佢有一個聯繫啦。
Now, if you struggle with being focused and present and engaged,
如果你有掙扎緊啊，集中唔到聽佢講嘢，
then yes, we have breathing techniques.
咁亦都有一啲呼吸嘅技巧啦，
We have tapping techniques.
一個 tapping 嘅技巧啦。
And then we also have the like the fidget spinners. Like we have little games and devices that are to remain us like engaged physically so our brain can concentrate.
有時有啲嘢啲器具可以搞下佢，咁使到你個腦咧係集中精神嘅。
This happens often with individuals who have attention deficits.
有啲人咧容易分心嗰啲咧就要用咁樣嘅方法啦。
Another good thing is to notice the temperature and the place and the colors you see.
咁你又要睇下當時嘅溫度啦，你見到嘅周圍嘅顏色。
Practice meditation.
去呢個練習呢個默想。
Close your eyes and just listen for 1 or 2 minutes.
有時要閉起眼係聽1-2分鐘。
The more you grow in these skills, the easier it is to input new material into your brain because your brain is quiet now.
你學識呢啲嘅技巧咧，你個腦部就可以集中。
And when I can quiet my brain, then I can be fully present for somebody else.
你個腦安靜咗落嚟咧，就可以更加聽到人哋講嘢啦。
I think we could talk for hours, but I don't want to bore everybody. Actually, I tell my students 5 questions, not 3.
我同我
You're
學生
being
就係
very
講5個問
generous.
題。
At this time, I'll have Pastor come up and do the closing prayer for us. And thank you, Dr. Vanessa.
My pleasure. Thank
Thank
you
you for
all.
a great day, and we really appreciate it. Maybe another chance we'll get you back for your second therapy things. Huh? Oh, yeah. This is a little thing from our church to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
我哋一同做一個禱告，我哋同心祈禱。
Let's pray.
慈愛主耶穌，我哋去到你嘅跟前。
Dear loving Lord Jesus, we come before you.
我哋將我哋自己、將我哋嘅家人、將我哋嘅人際關係放喺你嘅手當中。
We present ourselves, our families, and our relationships in your hands.
有陣時我哋自己都感到無力，或者我哋在當中有人受過傷害。
Sometimes we feel powerless or we have been hurt.
主啊，求你嘅醫治臨到我哋身上。
Lord, please give us your healing.
特別我求你使到我哋在座每一位都仍然有呢一個嘅盼望，去同身邊嘅朋友建立關係。
And we ask you for this hope to be able to establish relationship with people around us.
特別都係同上帝你再一次建立呢一個緊密嘅關係。
And especially to build a relationship, close relationship with you, God.
因為我哋自己深信主耶穌你最了解我哋，
Because we believe, Lord Jesus, that you know us best.
你明白我哋嘅感受，
You know how we're feeling.
你知道我哋嘅痛楚，
You know our pains.
你亦都讓我哋嘅過去發生。
And you allowed our past to happen.
所以主耶穌懇求你照顧我哋在座每一位，
Therefore, Lord Jesus, take care of us.
使到我哋在座每一個都能夠喺經歷當中能夠成長，
So every one of us here can grow in our experience.
亦都幫助我哋眾人能夠喺教會或者社區裏邊互相幫助同埋守望。
And we can all help each one another in the community and in this church.
使我哋眾人都能夠經歷呢一種醫治嘅福氣。
So we can all experience this blessing of healing.
我哋咁樣嘅禱告，奉主耶穌基督聖名祈求，
And our thanksgiving and prayers are in the name of Jesus Christ.
誠心所願。
Amen.
Amen。 好，咁我哋在座咧今日嘅講座都完結啦。
So this concludes our seminar today.
咁咧我知道已經10月咧第2個星期中秋節咧，我哋有中秋嘅晚會。
And the second Sabbath of September will be followed by our Mid-Autumn Festival evening.
安息日嘅聚會都邀請大家再一次出現，願神嚟賜福大家。
And we also invite
9月啦，9月
you
對唔住，9月
to every Sabbath service.